What if the darkest rulers of existence were never hiding in shadows, but waiting for those daring enough to whisper their names? For centuries, satanic grimoires and forbidden books have spoken of entities who don't just tempt humanity, they rule it from the unseen. They are the kings and queens of the left-hand path, beings who promise power, wealth, desire, and forbidden gnosis, but always at a terrifying cost. Most people believe demons are just symbols, stories meant to frighten children. But what if they were wrong? What if the 10 most terrifying rulers of the left-hand path and the dark rituals to summon them were not myths, but forces still shaping our world today, through contracts, lust, rebellion, sacrifice, and even the abyss itself? These aren't tales of superstition, they are mirrors of human hunger, written in the Grand Grimoire, the Ars Goetia, and even the infamous Codex Gigas. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not just history, it's initiation. By the end of this journey, you'll see why countless seekers feared speaking their names, and why the rituals that call them are still considered too dangerous to attempt. And yet, the truth has always been there, waiting for those willing to step into the night. Lucifuge Rofocale emerges from the pages of satanic grimoires like the Grand Grimoire and Le Dragon Rouge, painted as the dark treasurer of hell. He is not the kind of spirit who tempts with soft illusions, but the one who offers contracts written in blood. His presence is always tied to forbidden wealth, promising treasures that shimmer like gold but carry the weight of chains. Think of him as the figure who embodies the old saying, "Be careful what you wish for." Many seekers thought they were gaining riches, but they were only buying debt, an eternal servitude masked as fortune. His lesson is cruel yet simple. When greed blinds, freedom is always the first sacrifice, and when freedom fades, something else waits in the shadows. Unlike the grotesque images of the Baal demon king or the rage-driven Asmodeus demon, Lucifuge does not appear as a monstrous hybrid. Instead, he works through silence, whispers, and subtle contracts. In black magic rituals, his invocations are often centered on promises of influence, titles, and earthly authority. Imagine the executive who signs away integrity for power, or the artist who sacrifices authenticity for fleeting fame. That invisible transaction mirrors Lucifuge's own nature. He doesn't need horns or claws to enslave. He simply places the ink before you and waits for your hand to tremble. And while the deal feels personal, the truth is that countless souls have signed before. Their fate shows where this path inevitably leads. The forbidden books detail how summoning him demands rituals from the Devil's Bible or fragments of the Codex Gigas. But the objects are only symbols of a deeper surrender, the act of giving away willpower itself. Consider how people today become trapped in the endless pursuit of material wealth. The obsession for bigger houses, faster cars, or endless recognition becomes a ritual without candles. This is the modern invocation of Lucifuge, the silent prayer whispered every time someone trades meaning for money, and once invoked, he rarely leaves. For when you feed a hunger like his, it always grows stronger. What sets Lucifuge apart is his connection to secrecy. He governs what cannot be revealed, binding oaths and cloaking truths in shadow. In Demonology Explained, he is described as a ruler of occult secrets, a gatekeeper who only opens doors if you're ready to lock yourself inside forever. Imagine the whistleblower silenced by power, or the politician bound by dark alliances they cannot escape. These modern examples reflect Lucifuge's ancient role, the architect of hidden agreements. And once those bonds are sealed, escape is nearly impossible. Yet for some, that hidden knowledge feels worth the price, at least until the debt is called in. Lucifuge's realm is often tied to the left-hand path, the pursuit of forbidden gnosis and mastery over one's destiny at any cost. But mastery gained through him is always double-edged. Yes, he grants glimpses of wealth and control, but he also pulls the seeker further from themselves. It's like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become, and eventually, thirst becomes torment. In this sense, Lucifuge doesn't just control treasure, he turns treasure itself into a curse. This is why magicians once feared invoking him, even while they longed for what he could offer. The summoning demons traditions describe his arrival as cold, calculated, and contractual. He isn't invoked through passion, but through deliberate choice, the slow signing of one's freedom. Think of the countless musicians, writers, and leaders who confess to selling their soul for fame. Whether literal or metaphorical, their words echo Lucifuge's mark. He represents the temptation of shortcuts, the allure of skipping years of struggle by signing one night's agreement. But every shortcut cuts something out of you, and when that cut is deep enough, the soul begins to bleed in silence. In the company of the rulers of hell, Lucifuge Rofocale is unique. He is not destruction like Abaddon Apollyon, nor seduction like Lilith, Queen of Night. He is the treasurer, the accountant of damnation, who keeps balance sheets of every pact signed. His power lies in contracts, debts, and promises. And in this sense, he reflects the world we live in more than any other demon, where people willingly bind themselves to credit, obligations, and hidden costs. Lucifuge is not just a demon from old grimoires. He is the mirror of modern bondage to material obsession. And as his story closes, the next ruler of lust and wrath waits to be revealed, one whose tyranny begins not with contracts, but with desire itself. Asmodeus rises from satanic grimoires as a ruler feared not only for his power, but for the way he twists human passion into chains. Known in the Ars Goetia among the 72 demons, he is portrayed as a tyrant of lust, anger, and obsession. While Lucifuge Rofocale ensnares through contracts, Asmodeus enslaves by setting fire to desire itself. Imagine someone trapped in a toxic romance, burning with attraction yet withering under manipulation. That paradox is Asmodeus's realm. Desire that once gave life now devours it. His lesson is subtle but brutal. What you love most can destroy you when corrupted. And once it's corrupted, breaking free feels almost impossible. The forbidden books describe how magicians once invoked Asmodeus through black magic rituals to bend the passions of kings and queens. His influence didn't just break hearts, it reshaped empires. Think of Cleopatra's charm over Rome, or rulers undone not by swords but by seduction. Asmodeus represents that hidden force, the invisible whisper that drives men and women to sacrifice everything for forbidden pleasure. In our time, it echoes in addictions to lust, to digital temptation, to the constant chase for stimulation. The form may have changed, but the spirit behind it remains the same. And when the hunger grows, it becomes the perfect throne for Asmodeus to rule. Unlike the Baal demon king who commands armies, Asmodeus rules the battlefield within. His war is waged in the heart, where pleasure turns to compulsion. In Demonology Explained, his nature is bound to wrath as well as lust, showing how passion and anger often travel side by side. Consider jealousy, the rage that grows out of love distorted. Entire tragedies in history and literature trace back to this blend. Shakespeare's Othello, consumed by jealousy, could easily be seen as a man under Asmodeus's shadow. When desire burns too fiercely, it always casts a violent flame. That's where Asmodeus thrives, in the extremes of love that transform into fury. In some satanic grimoires, he is described as punishing the proud, twisting beauty into vanity and relationships into prisons. The Grand Grimoire even warns that invoking him might bring temporary ecstasy, but always followed by ruin. It's like indulging in endless sweet wine. You drink until you drown. Asmodeus represents that intoxication, the one that blinds reason and chains the spirit. Look at society's endless pursuit of beauty, status, and indulgence. How many crumble under the weight of wanting more? That collapse is not chance. It is the silent tyranny of desire turned into slavery. The left-hand path sometimes portrays Asmodeus as a gatekeeper of forbidden gnosis, teaching that desire itself is a force of creation if harnessed. But the danger lies in control. Few can master it without being consumed. Imagine the artist who channels desire into music, creating symphonies that outlive centuries. That's desire at its divine peak. Yet, for every Mozart, there are countless nameless ones destroyed by addictions, obsessions, and cravings. Asmodeus sits at this crossroads, offering fire that can either illuminate or incinerate. The choice is never easy, and that is why so many fail. Even in the Codex Gigas, the so-called Devil's Bible, echoes of his presence appear in descriptions of lustful torment. To summon him is not just to call a demon, it's to awaken the tyrant inside oneself. Rituals involving Asmodeus don't only manipulate others, they reveal how desire manipulates us. The gambler who risks everything for one more bet, the lover who keeps returning despite the wounds. These are modern Asmodean rites, and they show how his throne still stands strong, even without candles or Latin incantations. His dominion is the human heart, and no fortress is more fragile than that. Among the rulers of hell, Asmodeus is terrifying because he conquers without armies, without contracts, without open force. He rules through longing, wrapping chains around the soul disguised as pleasure. His lesson is perhaps the most relatable. Everyone has felt the sting of wanting something so badly it hurt. In that hurt, Asmodeus finds his altar, and as his story unfolds, the path leads toward another sovereign, one not bound by lust but by rebellion itself. For if Asmodeus enslaves the heart, Belial arrives to enslave the law. Belial is one of the most enigmatic names found in satanic grimoires and forbidden books. His very title means without master, symbolizing ultimate rebellion and freedom from any divine order. Unlike Lucifuge Rofocale, who binds through contracts, or Asmodeus, who enslaves with desire, Belial rules through lawlessness. He represents the collapse of structures, the chaos that emerges when no authority remains. Think of societies torn apart by corruption, where justice is no longer trusted and rules bend to power. That environment is fertile soil for Belial. He thrives where order is broken and freedom is mistaken for anarchy. Yet within that chaos, he always offers something strangely tempting: liberation. In the Ars Goetia, Belial is portrayed among the 72 demons as a figure who grants influence, titles, and status to those who call him. But every gift he gives corrodes the soul. His presence in black magic rituals is often linked to the ambition of those who want to rise without limits. It's like a politician who gains power by breaking every promise, or a leader who rules through manipulation instead of vision. Belial doesn't care about morality. He rewards cunning, disobedience, and rebellion. Yet, history shows that those who follow his path often discover the freedom he gives is as destructive as any chain. In Demonology Explained, Belial stands as the sovereign of corruption, a patron of lawless ambition. The Grand Grimoire warns that invoking him leads not only to wealth but to ruin, as integrity is stripped away. Imagine a businessman who builds an empire through lies, only to watch it collapse under scandal. That collapse is Belial's signature. He doesn't need to strike directly. He lets corruption destroy itself. And in modern times, every public downfall of someone powerful yet corrupt echoes his rule. For Belial does not build empires. He allows empires to rot from within. What makes Belial terrifying is his ability to blur the line between liberation and destruction. The left-hand path often frames him as a force of personal empowerment, teaching that breaking rules can lead to hidden truths. And indeed, sometimes laws are unjust and rebellion is necessary. But Belial twists this truth, pushing it further until destruction becomes the only outcome. Consider revolutions that began with noble ideals but descended into chaos. That descent is Belial's mark. Freedom at first, ruin at last. And those who summon him rarely notice when the ground beneath them begins to crumble. Belial's nature is also deeply tied to pride. He embodies the refusal to submit, echoing the same spirit seen in fallen angels like Azazel, fallen angel, or the wrath of Samael, angel of death. But his rebellion isn't against heaven alone, it's against any form of order. In personal life, this manifests as defiance for its own sake. Think of the person who rejects advice, destroys relationships, or sabotages opportunities simply to feel in control. This is Belial's invisible hand at work, the seduction of rebellion without purpose. And once rebellion becomes the goal itself, ruin becomes inevitable. In the Codex Gigas, sometimes called the Devil's Bible, echoes of Belial appear in passages about corruption and ruin. He is seen as a sovereign who gifts wealth only to ensure its loss, who grants freedom only to reveal chains. Summoning him through occult secrets was said to involve no grand spectacle, only the willingness to act without conscience. Modern parallels can be seen in corporations that exploit endlessly, in leaders who ignore every rule, and in individuals who pursue freedom while destroying themselves. These are not coincidences. They are Belial's rituals being lived out without candles or circles. Among the rulers of hell, Belial's dominion is perhaps the most insidious. He doesn't always need to appear. His presence is felt wherever laws collapse and corruption reigns. Unlike the Astaroth demon, who reveals forbidden knowledge, Belial reveals the weakness of human systems. He shows how fragile order truly is, and how quickly freedom becomes chaos. And as his shadow spreads, the path leads toward another sovereign, one whose crown was carved into the very Asgoetia itself, the first king of hell, Baal. Baal stands in the Asgoetia as the very first of the 72 demons, crowned as the Baal demon king. His image in satanic grimoires is unsettling, a hybrid form with the head of a man, a cat, and a toad, all at once. This monstrous appearance is more than symbolism. It represents primal chaos, the distortion of natural order. To the ancients, Baal was not simply a demon, but the embodiment of dominance through confusion. Imagine facing a leader whose very presence unsettles you, because he carries too many masks, too many contradictions. That is Baal's throne, one where chaos itself is crowned. And from that throne, his dominion begins. The forbidden books, such as the Grand Grimoire and Grimoirium Verum, describe Baal as a sovereign who grants invisibility to those who invoke him. Invisibility, however, was never just about hiding the body. It was about erasing accountability. Think of the politician who acts with impunity, the criminal who escapes justice, the corporate giant who hides behind loopholes. These are Baal's gifts in modern form, the power to act unseen, unchallenged, untouchable. But such power always carries the echo of corruption, for what is unseen easily turns monstrous. That is the true danger of Baal's blessing. Baal's monstrous form also connects him to the primal instincts buried within humanity. The cat represents cunning, the toad symbolizes poison, and the man reveals corrupted reason. Together, they form a trinity of domination, intellect, deception, and toxicity. In Demonology Explained, Baal is considered the archetype of rulers who thrive by blending fear with fascination. Picture a tyrant whose cruelty is masked by charisma, or a boss whose authority feels both terrifying and magnetic. This paradox is Baal's weapon, to be feared and followed at the same time. And that paradox still plays out today, in every realm where power seduces and terrifies simultaneously. In black magic rituals, summoning Baal was said to require sigils drawn with precision, candles burning with foul smoke, and invocations that opened doors to domination. Yet the ritual is less about magic and more about intent, the will to control others, to bend lives to your desire. Think of the modern leader who manipulates entire nations through propaganda, or the influencer who captures millions through crafted illusions. They may not draw circles on the ground, but they are invoking Baal nonetheless, for domination is his true domain, and wherever control becomes obsession, his shadow looms. Baal's title as the first king of hell also reflects hierarchy within the rulers of hell. While Lucifuge Rofocale guards treasure and Asmodeus demon twists lust, Baal's role is raw kingship, the right to command legions. His presence in occult secrets shows him as a general of demonic armies, a sovereign whose crown symbolizes chaos made law. In this sense, Baal represents the dangerous seduction of authority. Power always seems noble at first, but history shows how quickly it corrupts. The crown is heavy, but it is also intoxicating. And intoxication has always been the doorway through which Baal enters. References to Baal appear even in the Codex Gigas, the so-called Devil's Bible, where hybrid creatures stalk the margins, embodying the fusion of human and beast. These illustrations were not mere art. They were warnings of rulers who would embody monstrosity disguised as majesty. Baal is precisely that warning, dominion that looks powerful but corrodes all beneath it. It is the same today when authority places masks over corruption, when leaders cloak tyranny with spectacle. These modern parallels remind us that Baal's power is timeless, his rituals replayed across history, and in every replay, destruction follows. Among the terrifying demons, Baal is foundational because he proves that domination doesn't require beauty, fairness, or even reason. It only requires fear and control. He was crowned first because chaos is always the beginning of tyranny, and yet, as Baal's shadow deepens, another sovereign awaits. If Baal rules with primal chaos, the next ruler reveals secrets that should never be spoken. The Astaroth demon, the keeper of forbidden knowledge, Astaroth appears in satanic grimoires as one of the most dreaded dukes of hell, feared not for armies or chaos, but for the knowledge he holds. He is often described as a terrifying presence, mounted upon a dragon, carrying a serpent in his hand. His power lies not in brute force, but in revelation. He whispers truths that were never meant for mortal ears. The Codex Gigas, the infamous Devil's Bible, carries echoes of his shadow, suggesting that his domain stretches into the very margins of forbidden scripture. And unlike rulers who bind with wealth or lust, Astaroth binds through gnosis itself, the hunger to know. For some, that hunger is more intoxicating than any pleasure. The Ars Goetia places him among the 72 demons, warning magicians of his dangerous insights. To summon Astaroth is to open a book that can never be closed. Imagine a seeker who uncovers a secret so vast that it reshapes their reality. Suddenly, everything they believed collapses, and nothing feels safe again. That is the risk of Astaroth's knowledge. The forbidden books call him a gatekeeper of truths that dismantle illusions, the fragility of human law, the manipulation of the powerful, the thin veil between life and death. Knowledge of this kind does not liberate, it consumes, and in that consumption, the soul loses its anchor. In demonology explained, Astaroth's presence is linked to the temptation of curiosity. Humanity has always been drawn to secrets, alchemy, the stars, the mechanics of the soul. Astaroth offers these truths, but each revelation carries poison. It is like feeding on honey laced with venom. Picture a scientist obsessed with discovery, who sacrifices health, relationships, and sanity to unlock mysteries. Though society benefits, the individual decays. This is Astaroth's paradox, the gift of revelation that devours the one who receives it. And the deeper you go, the less likely you are to return unchanged. The left-hand path often frames Astaroth as a patron of philosophers and seekers, guiding them toward forbidden gnosis. But seekers forget that gnosis is fire. It can light the way or burn the world. Consider how knowledge of atomic power reshaped humanity. It promised energy but brought devastation. That duality is Astaroth's essence. His revelations can elevate minds or reduce civilizations to ash. And those who call him through black magic rituals rarely know which outcome awaits. To gamble with Astaroth's wisdom is to place your soul on a scale, hoping it weighs enough to survive the burden of truth. The Grand Grimoire and Le Dragon Rouge describe rituals where Astaroth is summoned through invocations whispered into the night, often with offerings of blood or incense. Yet the ritual is not about objects, it is about surrendering the mind. Imagine standing in a darkened room, chanting words that strip away your illusions one by one, until nothing remains but naked truth. That truth is unbearable for most. The addict who realizes their whole life is a prison, the lover who sees betrayal in every past word. These are microcosms of Astaroth's lessons. His knowledge is always true, but never gentle. Even the Codex Gigas warns in veiled words that calling upon Astaroth can drive men to madness. The human mind was not built to hold certain visions, yet he pours them out like rivers. His serpent symbolizes wisdom, but also temptation. His dragon, power, but also destruction. He embodies the very paradox of gnosis, illumination wrapped in shadows. To read forbidden lines, to utter forbidden names, to seek forbidden books. These are the steps that bring him closer. And when he comes, he does not leave without marking the soul forever. Knowledge becomes possession. Possession becomes bondage. Among the rulers of hell, Astaroth is terrifying not because he enslaves the body, but because he conquers the mind. He is the whisper that makes sleep impossible, the revelation that cracks your worldview. And while Lucifuge enslaves through pacts, Asmodeus through lust, and Belial through corruption, Astaroth enslaves through truth itself. Once you know what cannot be forgotten, you belong to him. And as his shadow recedes, another ruler steps forward, the Samael, angel of death, the poison of God, who bridges heaven and hell with judgment sharper than any blade. Samael is one of the most complex figures in satanic grimoires and apocryphal texts. Known as the Samael, angel of death, he embodies both divine wrath and demonic corruption. His name means poison of God, a title that reflects his paradoxical nature, part angel, part accuser, part destroyer. In the forbidden books, Samael is described as a bridge between heaven and hell. executing judgment on the living while whispering accusations against their souls. Unlike the Baal demon king or Asmodeus demon, Samael is not bound to lust or chaos. He is bound to destiny itself, and when he appears, it is rarely as a tempter, but as the executioner of what was already written. In demonology explained, Samael is often tied to the serpent in Eden, the one who lured humanity toward forbidden knowledge. This association places him near the archetype of Astaroth demon and Azazel fallen angel, figures who reveal truth but at a terrible cost. Imagine the paradox. The same being who delivers enlightenment is also the one who delivers death. That duality has haunted seekers for centuries. To study Samael is to confront the uncomfortable truth that illumination and destruction are often the same path, and many who walk it find that once you sip his poison, you cannot return to innocence. Samael's role as the angel of the abyss places him in line with other terrifying figures such as Abaddon Apollyon. Yet unlike Abaddon, who commands destruction at the end of days, Samael works in the present. He is the hand that tips the scale against you in life. The Codex Gigas, sometimes called the Devil's Bible, hints at this when it portrays angelic forms shadowed by serpents. Samael is the shadow behind law, the unseen prosecutor who whispers, "Guilty," even when the heart longs for mercy. And in that relentless judgment, his poison spreads. It is not venom of the flesh, but venom of the soul. The left-hand path interprets Samael as a force of hidden initiation, a being who strips away illusions with ruthless precision. He does not grant gnosis like Astaroth, nor desire like Asmodeus. He grants confrontation. Imagine a seeker meditating, expecting peace, but instead seeing every flaw, every sin, every shadow of their life illuminated. That moment of terror is Samael's initiation, to face oneself without masks. For some, this brings liberation. For others, despair. Either way, Samael's poison works because truth, when raw and merciless, always changes the soul forever. In black magic rituals, Samael is invoked with extreme caution, often as part of rites that bridge angelic and demonic names. His presence is a paradox. He can bless or annihilate, depending on intention. Think of the surgeon's knife. It heals when used properly, but kills when misused. Samael embodies this duality. The Grimoirium Verum warns that to summon him without preparation is to invite ruin, not wisdom. Yet some still risk it, believing that only through confrontation with death itself can life's deepest mysteries be revealed. And perhaps they are right, but the cost is always staggering. Modern life offers countless reflections of Samael's shadow. Consider the judge whose strict ruling ruins lives while upholding the law, or the disease that forces someone to confront their mortality, reshaping their entire worldview. These moments, harsh yet transformative, echo Samael's essence. He is not only in grimoires, he is in every encounter with endings, every brush with mortality, every whisper that says, "Your time is limited." This is his true dominion, not distant, but intimate, woven into the fabric of human life. And those who recognize him see how close death and wisdom truly are. Among the rulers of hell, Samael is terrifying because he blurs categories. Is he angel or demon? Executioner or teacher? Poison or cure? He embodies all may, which is why he unsettles even seasoned magicians. His lesson is not that death comes, it is that death is already here, shaping every choice we make. And as his figure fades into shadow, another ruler emerges. Not a judge, but a queen. For if Samael is the poison of God, then Lilith, Queen of Night, is the embodiment of forbidden freedom, the feminine shadow unleashed against all chains. Lilith emerges in satanic grimoires and forbidden books as the Queen of Night, the mother of demons, and the embodiment of forbidden freedom. Unlike the Asmodeus demon who enslaves through desire, or the Baal demon king who dominates through fear, Lilith seduces through liberation. She represents the feminine shadow unbound by rules, the figure who refuses submission and embraces the darkness of independence. In the ancient myths, she was the first wife of Adam to cast out because she would not bow. That refusal made her a monster to some, but a goddess of freedom to others. And even now, her name still sparks both terror and fascination. In the Ars Goetia and other satanic grimoires, Lilith is portrayed as a night demoness who preys upon men in their sleep, draining vitality through seduction. But beneath the horror lies symbolism. She is desire unshackled, sexuality without boundaries. Imagine the societies that tried to silence women's voices, only to see rebellion rise stronger with each attempt. Lilith's legend mirrors that defiance. She does not represent destruction for its own sake. She represents the refusal to live in chains, and that refusal is terrifying to every system built on control. The left-hand path reveres Lilith as a patroness of occult initiation, guiding seekers through the mysteries of shadow and desire. Unlike Astaroth demon, who reveals forbidden knowledge through gnosis, Lilith reveals it through experience, through embracing what is feared. Think of someone reclaiming their voice after years of silence, or rediscovering their sexuality after years of suppression. These acts may not involve rituals or grimoires, yet they echo Lilith's essence. She represents the awakening that comes when one chooses the forbidden path of authenticity over obedience, and once awakened, it cannot be undone. In black magic rituals, Lilith is invoked for power over love, sexuality, and fertility. But her rites are not only about control, they are about transformation. The Grimoire Verum warns that her presence is intoxicating, overwhelming, and dangerous. Imagine the addict who feels alive only in chaos, or the lover who thrives only in forbidden passion. These are modern faces of Lilith, showing how her shadow is not confined to ancient texts, but lives in human hearts. She is not simply summoned, she is awakened wherever boundaries are broken. The Codex Gigas, often called the Devil's Bible, contains illustrations of night spirits that scholars have connected to Lilith's mythology. These images were more than art. They were warnings of freedom's cost. For Lilith's gift is double-edged. She gives power, but that power isolates. Consider the person who breaks from tradition to live authentically, only to be cast out by family or society. They walk the path of Lilith, gaining freedom but losing belonging. This is why she is both feared and revered, demonized and deified. To embrace her is to embrace exile, and yet in exile to discover true power. In Demonology Explained, Lilith is not simply a seductress, she is the architect of nightmares, the mother of spirits who torment the restless. Her children are said to be born from shadow, feeding on fear and desire. This myth reflects how repressed instincts always return in dreams, in anxieties, in obsessions. Lilith is the voice that says, "What you repress will rule you." And by facing her, seekers confront the truth that darkness cannot be ignored, it must be integrated. For in shadow lies the power that, once claimed, transforms the soul. Among the rulers of hell, Lilith is terrifying not because she destroys, but because she liberates. She shows that freedom can be more frightening than chains, that the night can be both sanctuary and abyss. And while Samael poisons through judgment, Lilith intoxicates through liberation. Yet beyond her reign stands another figure, one tied not to desire or rebellion, but to fire and war. For if Lilith is the queen of night, Azazel, fallen angel, is the scapegoat and firebringer, who gave humanity the weapons of its own destruction. Azazel appears in forbidden books and apocalyptic texts as the Azazel, fallen angel, the one who descended to teach humanity weapons, enchantments, and sorcery. Unlike Lucifuge Rofocale, who traps with contracts, or Asmodeus demon, who enslaves through lust, Azazel gives knowledge that burns. He is tied to the ancient ritual of the scapegoat, where sins were symbolically cast onto a goat and driven into the wilderness, a reminder of his role as the bearer of guilt. But beyond ritual, Azazel is the one who handed fire to humanity, a fire that could build or destroy. And once that fire was lit, it could never be taken back. In satanic grimoires like the Grand Grimoire and the Grimoire Verum, Azazel is mentioned as a teacher of forbidden arts, often linked to metallurgy and warfare. His gift was double-edged, knowledge that advanced civilization, but also plunged it into endless conflict. Imagine ancient tribes discovering how to forge weapons for defense, only to unleash wars that consumed generations. That is Azazel's paradox, progress always shadowed by blood. In today's world, his echo resounds in technologies like nuclear power or artificial intelligence, tools of creation that carry the seeds of ruin. The Firebringer's lesson has never left us. The Ars Goetia does not list Azazel among the 72 demons, yet his name lingers in apocryphal lore, often side by side with Samael, angel of death. Where Samael judges, Azazel teaches, and where Samael poisons, Azazel arms. His knowledge is not passive, it is weaponized gnosis. Think of the scientist who creates a discovery too dangerous for human hands, or the leader who exploits secrets to dominate nations. This is Azazel's domain, knowledge that should not be shared, but once shared cannot be contained, and so he remains feared not as a tempter, but as a catalyst of irreversible change. In the left-hand path, Azazel is revered as a bringer of forbidden gnosis, guiding seekers toward empowerment through mastery of shadowed knowledge. But initiation through him is never soft. His lessons come with scars, demanding sacrifice in exchange for wisdom. Consider the artist who suffers endlessly for inspiration, or the revolutionary who sacrifices peace for change. These are not just metaphors, they are Azazel's rites, carried out daily in human lives. His teachings remind us that every gift comes with weight, and every revelation with consequence. To follow him is to carry fire in your bare hands, knowing it will burn even as it illuminates. The Codex Gigas, the Devil's Bible, contains illustrations of horned beasts and exiled figures, often associated with Azazel's myth. He is the exile, the cast-out, the eternal scapegoat who bears humanity's sins. Yet he is also the teacher who refuses to withhold knowledge, no matter the cost. Think of Prometheus in Greek myth, who stole fire from the gods and was punished eternally. Azazel is the darker echo of that myth, fire given not as a blessing, but as a test. And humanity has been failing that test since the beginning. Every war, every act of destruction is a reminder that the fire still burns. In black magic rituals, invoking Azazel is said to awaken hidden talents, sharpen intellect, or reveal secrets of combat and sorcery. But the danger lies in obsession. Those who call upon him often lose themselves in their own creations, consumed by the very forces they sought to control. Imagine the inventor who dies by their invention, or the magician who becomes a prisoner of the energies they once commanded. This is Azazel's mark, knowledge that backfires, brilliance that destroys its bearer. His presence is not easily dismissed, for once you call him, his fire lingers. Among the rulers of hell, Azazel stands apart as the teacher of destructive arts. While Astaroth demon reveals truths of the mind and Belial demon corrupts through lawlessness, Azazel arms humanity with tools of its own ruin. He is not merely a demon of war, he is war's architect, its eternal patron. And as his shadow fades, the path grows darker still, for beyond fire and exile waits an ancient god of sacrifice. If Azazel brings the fire, then Moloch's sacrifice consumes it in blood. Moloch stands in history and satanic grimoires as one of the darkest rulers of the abyss. Unlike the Azazel fallen angel, who armed humanity, or the Asmodeus demon, who enslaves with lust, Moloch demands the ultimate price, blood. Known for the Moloch sacrifice, the burning of children in fire, his cults were among the most feared in antiquity. The forbidden books describe colossal idols of bronze, heated until they glowed, where offerings were placed in hollow arms. To outsiders it seemed unthinkable, but to worshippers it was the highest devotion. Moloch is not just a demon, he is the embodiment of sacrifice twisted into horror, and his name still echoes wherever innocence is consumed by power. The Codex Gigas, often called the Devil's Bible, contains passages scholars link to rituals of fire and blood, resonating with Moloch's myth. To summon him through black magic rituals meant offering not possessions, but life itself. Even if no flames are lit today, the spirit of Moloch lives in every system that sacrifices the vulnerable for the sake of ambition. Think of corporations exploiting children for labor, or wars where the young are sent first to die. These modern horrors are no less his rituals. They reveal that Moloch was never bound to ancient altars. He thrives wherever innocence is traded for gain. In Demonology Explained, Moloch is one of the terrifying demons whose hunger is insatiable. His power is not subtle like Lucifuge Rofocale with contracts, or intellectual like Astaroth demon with secrets. His power is brute consumption. He rules by demanding what no one should give, forcing worshippers to prove loyalty through irreversible loss. Imagine the parent torn between love and fear, believing their child's death would secure divine favor. That is Moloch's cruelty, turning devotion into despair. And yet, history proves how many succumbed, blinded by terror or desperation. The Grand Grimoire and Grimoirium Verum rarely mention Moloch directly, but his shadow is felt in every passage that speaks of sacrifice. His archetype bleeds into the left-hand path, teaching the seeker about the cost of power. To walk with Moloch is to face the truth that ambition always demands something precious. Consider the executive who sacrifices family for career, or the soldier who loses innocence to survive. These choices may not involve altars, yet they reflect Moloch's law. What you want most will demand what you cherish most, and that demand never ends. In occult secrets, Moloch is often associated with fire as both purifier and destroyer. His flames were said to consume not only flesh, but also the soul of the offering, binding it to his dominion. Fire remains his element, representing transformation through destruction. Imagine the addict who burns their life for one more high, or the nation that burns its future for one more war. These are sacrifices in Moloch's name, even if no idol stands in the square. His presence is less about statues and more about cycles of destruction fueled by human hands. What makes Moloch distinct among the rulers of hell is his absolute demand. While Baal demon king rules with chaos and Belial demon with corruption, Moloch accepts nothing less than blood. His hunger reflects the darkest side of humanity's relationship with power, the belief that ultimate strength comes only through ultimate loss. In this sense, he is not a relic of the past but a mirror of the present. Every time a generation sacrifices its children for progress, Moloch's idol glows again, and it always glows red. Among the terrifying demons, Moloch's reign is one of the most dreadful because he consumes the very future of humanity. His lesson is not hidden, it is screamed in fire. To understand him is to understand how easily devotion can become destruction when guided by fear. And as his shadow fades, the abyss opens once more, revealing the final ruler, Abaddon Apollyon, the angel of the abyss, whose legions rise not to demand sacrifice, but to unleash devastation on all creation. Abaddon, also known as Apollyon, rises in apocalyptic texts and satanic grimoires as the angel of the abyss. Unlike the Moloch sacrifice, which devours life through fire, Abaddon commands the endless pit itself, releasing devastation upon the earth. In the Book of Revelation, his role is clear. He leads an army of locust demons swarming with torment. The forbidden books call him the Destroyer, the one who embodies the final stage of judgment. He is not temptation, not seduction, but annihilation itself. To invoke Abaddon is to open the bottomless pit, and once it opens, nothing returns the same. In Demonology Explained, Abaddon is one of the terrifying demons who stand apart from rulers like Asmodeus demon or Baal demon king. He does not rule through contracts, lust, or even knowledge. His dominion is raw devastation, the abyss swallowing all. Imagine a city struck not by war or famine, but by despair so deep it feels bottomless. That is Abaddon's presence, the abyss within, reflected without. His shadow is not only a prophecy of the end, it is a mirror of human collapse, of societies devouring themselves from within until nothing remains but ruin. The Codex Gigas, the Devil's Bible, contains ominous illustrations of monstrous swarms that some link to Abaddon's legions. These creatures were not meant to be metaphors, they were warnings of forces that devour without reason. In black magic rituals, calling upon Abaddon meant unleashing torment not on one's enemies alone, but on the summoner themselves. He does not discriminate. He destroys. It is like summoning a storm to strike your neighbor, only to watch it swallow your home too. This is the cost of Abaddon's power, devastation without boundaries. The left-hand path interprets Abaddon as a force of ultimate initiation. Where Astaroth demon offers forbidden knowledge and Lucifuge Rofocale offers pacts, Abaddon offers confrontation with nothingness itself. His abyss is not just destruction but transformation, forcing seekers to abandon all illusions. Imagine standing before the void, stripped of identity, wealth, and belief, realizing none of it could follow you. That is the initiation of Abaddon, the death of illusion before the death of flesh. For some, this is liberation. For most, terror. Either way, the abyss swallows all. In ancient lore, Abaddon is not always seen as evil. Sometimes he is an agent of divine judgment, the executioner of heaven's wrath. This duality reflects his paradoxical nature, angel and destroyer, servant and sovereign. The Grimoirium Verum whispers of his name alongside other rulers of hell, warning that he answers only to destruction. To understand Abaddon is to see destruction not as punishment alone, but as a force of renewal. Forests burn, yet new life emerges. Empires collapse, yet new worlds are born. In this sense, Abaddon is both terror and necessity, and this paradox deepens his dread. Modern reflections of Abaddon's shadow are everywhere. Consider wars that level entire nations or plagues that erase generations. These are not just events, they are echoes of the abyss. Even in personal life, the feeling of hitting rock bottom, of facing despair so vast it feels infinite, is a taste of Abaddon's dominion. He is not distant, he is present whenever destruction strips us bare, forcing us to rebuild or perish. This is why his myth endures, because the abyss is not just under the earth, it is inside us, and when it opens, everything changes. Among the rulers of hell, Abaddon stands as the final terror, the embodiment of endings. While Lilith, Queen of Night, tempts with freedom and Azazel, fallen angel, arms with fire, Abaddon commands silence after the storm. He is the closing of the book, the sealing of the cycle, the abyss into which all paths eventually fall. And as his name fades into shadow, the seeker realizes that the 10 sovereigns of the left-hand path are not just demons of old, they are mirrors of human hunger, corruption, rebellion, and destruction. Each one reflects a piece of us, and in that reflection lies the true initiation. Now that you've walked through the shadows of the 10 most terrifying rulers of the left-hand path and the dark rituals to summon them, the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you dismiss them as mere myths, or will you recognize their reflections in everyday life? Desire, corruption, sacrifice, rebellion, and even the abyss within yourself. Every story you heard is not just about demons, but about choices. So I ask you, which of these rulers felt closest to your own struggles? Which lesson hit you hardest? Lucifuge's contracts, Asmodeus's desire, Belial's rebellion, or Moloch's hunger? Write it down in the comments, because naming what you've seen is the first step to breaking its grip. And remember, these entities are not just outside forces, they are mirrors of humanity's darkest instincts. To face them is to face yourself. But tell me, if given the chance to summon one of these rulers, would you dare, or would you turn away before the ritual begins? If this journey opened your eyes, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notifications, and join me in uncovering more occult secrets, forbidden gnosis, and the truths hidden in the darkest pages of history, because the abyss is wide, and this was only the beginning.